I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From Zen Rose Garden.com.
We want to know, what is your favorite healing modality, your favorite energy healing modality? Let us know in the comments. If you're watching on replay, let us know in the comments.
And have you experienced any? Do you use any? Have you experienced any?
Right.
Do you know what we're talking about?
And if you don't, let us know in the comments too.
Have you plugged your finger into a light socket? Is that the extent of it?
Wow. No supervision whatsoever.
Have you licked a battery?
Ooh.
You know, when I was a musician, that's how we checked the battery on the wireless mic. But like guitar players are used to licking their own batteries, so I would always have the guitar.
It just sounds bad.
I meant it to. So I'm trying to shock David. It's my goal in life. So I would give my battery the 9 volts. The wireless mics had 9 volts. You stick up in their butt, and so I would, to check my battery.
She's doing really good.
I would like give it to my guitar player, and he'd lick it. They're like numb because they've licked so many batteries, and it was like, it's still good, and I put it back in it. Or if it was dead, he'd be like, no, dead, another battery. So I didn't want the shock, because then we're gonna make that. So it's guitar play thing, just
all right.
Pro tip.
Yeah. And we're going to give you different types of energy healing today, but we're also going to break it down more in a story form, like how we started energy healing from beginning to now, and kind of the evolution that we went through. So stick with us for story time.
Well, for me, my earliest kind of engagement with seeing energy, feeling energy, was when I was little. I could see the light around people, and I didn't really realize that it was something that not everybody could just kind of see.
Right.
So I would see lights around people, colors and sparkles, and not so much colors when I was little, but sparkles and brr, brr. And I kind of thought it was a normal thing. So I'd go around with my little camera as a little kid. They were like little big, not like phones. And I would try to capture people's auras, because I thought, well, it's really pretty, I want to capture it. But of course the aura never came out on the photograph, and I'm like, I don't get it. I know I saw it.
Yeah.
So I was out with my dad to the store one day, and there was a guy in front of us, and his aura was just really black. He looked like he had a pig pen cloud around him. Remember, like the comic books, the Snoopy, the Peanuts? Had like this black cloud around him. I'm like, maybe we should hang back a little and give him some space. I said, Dad, because he's got that. He's like, black cloud around him. My dad could see auras, but he was from a generation where you don't really talk about your stuff.
Right.
And he's like, and he's like, you could see that? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, he's like, not everybody can see it. And so we had something we talked about what it was. But growing up, I came from the tradition of laying on of the hands. So there was some energy work things going on in the context of my parents' church. So I was sort of used to that kind of energy work, like a spiritual laying on of hands. And I could feel the energy and have the shift and all of that. So that was sort of my first early experience. And then when I was in college, we'd play little energy exercises with energy balls and, play with it, because it was tangible.
Right.
And then fast forward, I remember one time going to get a massage, and the massage therapist was Reiki attuned, didn't know what Reiki was yet. And at the end of my massage, he put his hands over my head, and I felt this zzz, and I was like, wow, that feels just like this other experience I had. And then I went to the PT for some work on my jaw, because I had TMJ, and they were like, we have this new modality that and didn't tell me what it was. It was craniosacral therapy, and they started doing it, and I was like, whoa, that's the same thing. I could feel the energy. And then after my divorce, I went through my own healing process. This is super fast. I'm trying to cliff notes it. Yeah. And then I started reaching out to a friend in LA who did this kind of work. And I went, I think this is what I need right now. And I just dove in head first and started doing energy work. And from there, I met some people that were like, hey, you want to be Reiki attuned? And I was like, oh, cool. Let's do that. And so did that, got Reiki attuned. And that's kind of the moment when David and I collided, was when I was in the middle of my Reiki training. So I figured, let me kind of formalize this and see what it's about.
Ari always brings some of the best questions. I love her questions. So she says, we can see auras when we want. Some people can, they come in naturally able to see auras, and that's kind of a skill set that they have. And other people can build up the skill, but you can build it, and you can sense auras as you build that skill. It's not necessarily seeing for everybody. Some people see through intuition or knowing or just kind of an impulse, and can be very accurate that way as well. But keep in mind that when we're talking about subtle energies and we're talking about perception, we're talking about how your brain processes your senses. So everybody's brain is going to process sensory information a little bit differently. So some people have more visual acuity naturally, and some people have more auditory naturally. Some people have, different senses depending on the way their brain is wired, basically.
There was a guy, Kilner, his name was Kilner. It was like the whole spiritualist movement, theosophical movement was going on. It was really hot and heavy around the turn of the 20th century. And, a lot of the people were sensitives and they could see auras, that it was a natural thing for them. So he's like, there's got to be a way that we can create so that the average person can see it. So he experimented with a bunch of different chemicals and like color screens that you could look through. He said it's got to be a function of light, where if I eliminate certain frequencies with different colors, that it'll pop out. And so he did. He invented what they called the Kilner screen, and it was really kind of the first aura camera without being a camera. So he would get different subjects and put them behind the screen, and it would cut out enough frequencies that you could see that the electrical current of the human body. And it would, he would have them think about different things, experiment with like throwing their energy out, and you could see the movement behind the screen. They have, you can actually get glasses now. They're like $50-$60 that are Kilner screen glasses, and they're wild to play with, because if you put them on, you can see
the average person.
The average person can see. So they're kind of like training wheels if you want to learn how to see auras. So it's kind of interesting. There's other tricks where you can kind of trick the mind. One of them is like a shadow. Shadow exercise.
One of our favorites that we actually found out about on accident was a shadow exercise. We were doing sessions and we went out in the backyard, and there was the shadow was being cast, and we had just gotten done with a client. So we went out and we were kind of, just randomly happened to look at one of our shadows, and we could literally see the energy field off and like the venting that was happening in different places, just with our visual eyes, looking at the shadow, not directly at the sun or directly at anything else, but looking at the shadow of ourselves with our back to the sun, looking down on the ground. And looking at, like, I would turn my hands up and you could see energy venting from my hands or venting from my head.
So, this is like partially the heat that comes off the body, but we would experiment with it. Like, let's say we would just done a really heavy session with someone that had a lot of heavy stuff. I was like, let's go see if that looks different from just going out there. Like, we go out for coffee.
Our normal days.
We look at the shadow. Like on a normal day, what do we look like there? What's kind of coming off the body? It was kind of a clear kind of heat you could see coming off the body, and different parts. And then after a session, we'd be like, let's see what that looks like.
And then we would also practice with setting intentions while we were looking at the shadow. And we would have the other person look at the shadow while we're doing different things, like expanding our energy, contracting our energy, and you would literally see the shadow change shape.
Looking at what Kilner did with the Kilner screens, I'm like, let's do it. This is sort of acting like a Kilner screen. Let's see if we can change what is coming off the body. And so after a session, when there'd be a lot of heavy energy that we've been helping somebody release, then you'd see like the colors would actually be different coming off. They'd be like kind of murkier, like we're like venting that person's stuff. So it was kind of crazy.
So Ari says, briefly, how can someone get rid of a poverty mindset? For example, if someone grew up in an environment of lack and it's keeping them broke, how can they change their paradigm or shift to prosperity? The main component is looking at those spaces and places where you find lack, because I grew up in a very poor household. The lack mentality was very deep in my mind, even though from a young age, I knew that I was going to be well off, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that and I held to that. So I had to go through and basically root out the programs and rewire them.
Really a willpower of not staying in the poverty mindset, without going into the fantasy of like, I'm going to get $1 million check and all this stuff's going to come to me, without the like fantasy of the secret, but the real practical mindset.
And then working on the challenges that come up around it. Because when you do anything like law of attraction or mental programming and things like that, what you're doing is you're setting the intention that I want this, okay? I want $1 million, for example, okay? Your mind is going to bring up all of the reasons you can't have it. those are gold. Okay. Your mind is going to bring up, well, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. You're like, okay, let me look at that program. Let me look at the root of that program. Let me look at the memory when that program got started. Rewire that memory, rewire the electrical impulse, and then do it with the next one, do it with the next one. And you keep doing with all of these challenges that are coming up and all of these programs in your head that say you can't do it. And eventually there's no more left, and you just step into that reality because you're creating it step by step.
You're changing neural pathways.
Yes. I want to talk a little bit about my story. I would play with balls of energy. I would play with the energy of my hands. I would play with my intention. And then over time, what happened was, as I grew up, I started, kind of playing with this more consciously.
Tai Chi, Qigong kind of practice.
And I would actually use it when I would dance. I was, a dancer in the rave scene for over 20 years, DJ for over 20 years. And I would basically dance with this ball, and I could literally feel it. And so I would move it all around my body. I would move it around the space or place that I was dancing, and other people could tangibly feel it as well. So we started playing back and forth with different energy balls.
That's how we got laid. Just saying.
Yeah, there was a part of that.
It
got me the girls. And then over time, what happened was I would do energy work sessions on people, just feeling their energy, feeling where I was out of balance. And eventually what happened was I went through a very, kind of like Heather, divorce and life fell apart and everything. And I moved down to Vegas, and one of the first people that I met down here was like, hey, I need somebody to practice Reiki on. Well, at the time I'd heard about Reiki, but I was like, I don't need that. I already do my own energy work. I didn't need anything special. So as soon as she put her hands on me, I was like, yeah, I'll be your guinea pig. As soon as she put her hands on me, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to know how to do that, whatever that was. It was a huge, massive experience. So I went and I trained and I researched and I did all kinds of things on that. And that kind of led me on my path to doing energy work professionally. And from there, it evolved into meeting. I actually started doing hypnotherapy as well, because I wanted to know how the mind worked in conjunction with the energy. So I started doing hypnotherapy, learning more about the mind. And then Heather and I met, collided, and then we evolved from there, just doing Reiki into Cranio, because we were leveling up. That's kind of how it went for me personally.
So yeah, we just kept at it. That was 11 years ago. So we kind of met and collided when I was doing my Reiki attunements. I was at a friend's house for Thanksgiving when I met David. We were drinking a glass of wine after Thanksgiving dinner, and I was on the phone with David, and hung up, cut my finger out, the
wine glass broke,
and it cut my finger down to the bone,
pretty deep,
really deep. I might have been this finger. Just wine glass broke, boom, cut it all the way down. My friend who was in the medical profession, she's like, you need to get you some stitches, because that's it's not going to heal. So I went, kind of covered it up like that with my finger, and got David on the phone. I was like, hey, she's figuring out, getting the kids together. I got to go get stitches, but I don't want to get stitches. Let's get together, you and me, and do some distance energy work. He was up in Sacramento and I was in Southern California, my friends. I said, let's do an experiment and try to see if we can fix this without stitches. And so we got on the phone for about 15 minutes. I was like, let's do some distance energy work. You send some energy, I'll do some energy, and let's see what happens. So we sat there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a while. She was kind of gathering up what we needed to do to go to the emergency room. And she comes over and she goes, let me see. And so I lifted my hand away, and it had completely sealed up. I was like, let's speed the healing up. I want to see if we can do this. It was totally sealed up. She went like that. You couldn't open it. And she was like, I don't understand what just happened. And it was really cool, because it actually, this is so cheesy. This is so cheesy, guys. It actually sealed up in the shape of a heart. I was like, oh, that's so cheesy. This is my guy. Oh dear. So yeah, that's what happened. So
it probably did need stitches.
It did, definitely. I'm not stupid. I've had kids. I'm I know that needed, it wasn't just but it was
right. But I was in Sacramento. She was down here.
It was fun.
And literally, I put my finger, or wrap my hand around my own finger, and just
I was
pretended.
doing mine. We're like, let's just see how magical.
Imagine, I was right there. Right.
And then boom.
And then it literally worked.
It was really cool.
So we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to give you actually a couple really, really simple exercises and a little demonstration. What is subtle energy? Subtle energy itself is basically the bioelectric field around your physical body. It's the same thing that we're using cell phones to power, okay? To click and hitting that like button, you're using your bioelectric field.
All right, a light pad on the, right? You have a glove on and you touch a light pad, it doesn't work because it's working with that from your finger.
So subtle energy, the bioelectric field around your body. And then you've got energy balls, which are basically a condensed form of that energy. You're setting intention to create a ball of energy. Chakra balancing. So chakras are different energy centers through your body. And chakra balancing is basically using that energy, the subtle energy of your electrical field to align or basically balance or align these different energy centers through your body. Auras are the layers of energy around your field. If you think about your energy system like a magnet, okay, so you've got a magnetic field around you that expands out. Okay.
Vroom, 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 vroom,
So
like that.
Yeah.
Exactly
So when you're talking
like
about healing these different pieces and parts, you're basically using the ability to tap into and perceive subtle energy with the best instruments in the world, which are your hands, to balance, to find out where these places are out of balance and just allow with intention the parts that are out of balance to find their balance again.
It's
Simple
kind
as
of
that.
super interesting because when we were doing our craniosacral therapy training, one of the people that was teaching it was talking about a study they did with different people who had been in accidents. Like, let's say one person had been a ballet dancer or something like that. And they were just couldn't totally recover and couldn't get their balance. So what they did, they went and had some cranial and some energy balancing and actually felt like the body where it was lining up and felt like this boom, almost like a bone was out. And so they did some experiments with like, let's see if it's like using intention and kind of like push it back in. Like, what would that be wild if, like, because you got in an accident, part of your energy got pushed out? So they did some experiments with it, like pushing it back in, and found that it actually sort of corrected.
Not sort of, it absolutely corrected.
Like feeling off balance.
So most people aren't going to notice those kinds of things, and that is basically it's a concept that where your body believes it is in space and time. Okay, so if I close my eyes and if I've got my hand over here, I know that my hand is over here because my body is sensing that my hand is over here. So if that gets bumped or something, or you're in an accident, that acuity, that ability to tell where your body is in space and time might get a little skewed. So what they noticed is in situations like that, that energy center would be out of alignment. So when they put it back in alignment, then it lined the body back up and the mind back up with where it thinks it is in space and time.
It's called proprioception, where it's like a sense of feeling of where something in your body, inside or outside, is in space. But they've done a lot of research on it. And energy work is nothing new. There are literally thousands of modalities that work with the energy from the ancient Chinese systems of Asian systems. Qigong and Tai Chi are all about manipulating and controlling the body's energy.
Chakra system, Indian systems.
There's all sorts of different modalities. There's Ho'oponopono and pranic this and theta healing, and they're all sort of different languages for us to access the energy of our body and the energy of our body that connects to the energy of the earth and the universe and everything. It's sort of like, how do we live a better life with our energy in the space? And that's kind of the goal of energy work, is to live in a happy space, to feel in a healthy space, to feel better within the energy system that you live in, which is the earth, the sky, the universe, everything. Yeah.
So Ori says, sounds similar to mudras. I haven't looked deeply into the concept, but the story reminds me of that. So mudras, from my understanding at least, is mudras are different, basically positions to hold your fingers that can activate different pieces or parts of energy and allow the energy to flow in different ways, especially when you connect it to your breathing. So my understanding of mudras is more along those lines.
It's a system that goes back to more the Vedic
Right.
India.
Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a demonstration and an exercise for tuning into subtle energy. And this is something that anybody can do without having any particular training or skill set with. Okay. So take your hands, and once again, we know because of cell phones that our hands have an energy themselves that can manipulate cell phones. Okay. So you take your hands, you move them as close as possible. And if you want to rub them together a little bit to kind of get them activated and get them more sensitive, and then you take your hands and you move them as close as you can until you start to feel a pushback. Okay. That is your subtle energy field.
So the difference. Okay. Just about everybody can feel heat between their hands,
right?
Because we have body heat, but what we're looking for is pressure and electricity.
Yeah.
So those are the things that help you feel the electrical part of your body.
Right. So that is a subtle energy field that you are literally feeling. And as you get your hands closer and as you become more sensitive, you can feel it out further. But start as close as you can until you start to feel that pushback. Okay. There's a resistance there. That resistance itself is before you're physically touching. And that is where your sensitivity is to subtle energy. Then the next phase of that is taking the intention and using that energy and then intending for a ball of energy. Okay, so you're creating a ball of energy. And as you do that, move your hands back and forth and just kind of see where you feel that pushback, kind of the boundary of the ball, the energy of the ball. And then what you can do is you can take that and you can put it in your body wherever you want and just kind of fill yourself with all the yummy goodness that you want. And you can do the same thing with auras. So the same thing we did here, just do that on your arm or on your face or on wherever you want. And what you're doing is you're feeling the energy of your bioelectric field. You're feeling the energy of your subtle energy system. And if you notice anything out of balance, just kind of hold it there and set the intention for this to find its balance. Nothing super complicated here. It's super simple.
This is how Dr. Strange got started. So you just went full nerd, guys.
I did.
Guys, if you liked this video,
hit that like button 5 times for more live hangouts, behind the scenes secrets, and mind hacking pro tips.
Be sure to subscribe.
And click the bell to turn notifications on.
So you're the first to know
when we drop a new video.
Or go live.
And we know that time is a valuable and precious resource. And the fact that you guys have chosen to spend that not only with us, but most importantly for yourselves, leveling up your skills, taking your life to a new level. We absolutely honor and appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video, guys.